Zhenla. Zhenla is the Chinese designation for the successibility of the kingdom of Funan, preceding the Khmer Empire that existed from around the late 6th to the early 9th century in Indochina. Zhenla was still used in the 13th century by the Chinese involved Zhou Daquan, author of the Custom of Cambodia. It appears on the Malcolm map. However, modern historiography applies the name exclusively to the period from the late 6th to the early 9th century. It is dubious if Zhenla ever existed as a unitary kingdom, or if this is a misconception by Chinese chronists. Most modern historians assert that Zhenla was in fact just a series of loose and temporary confederations of principalities. Zhenla was the name given Chinese accounts of the entity that sent tributes to Chinese emperors. The word Zhenla and likewise Funan are unknown in the Old Khmer language. For etymology attempts to link Zhenla to a translation of his Chinese name as pure Beeswax, which was one of his regional commodities mentioned in Chinese annals. Zhenla has been suggested that the name means defeated Siam, as Zhenla has been reconstructed to Chenla in Tang Dynasty pronunciation, which is similar in southern Cambodian town Siem Reap, whose name is often taken to mean flattened Siam. However, it has been pointed out that this derivation is problematic as conflicts between Siam and Cambodia occurred centuries after the name was first used. Therefore, although the names Zhenla and Siem Reap could perhaps be related, microphysically argue that the original meanings of both names are unknown. Similar explanation, however, may apply to later variants from Zhenla. According to author Peter Harris, it very clearly means defeated Chams, since Chang is the word Chinese for Chang. Peter Harris also noted the explanation given in Mingshi during the Jingchuan Trend period 1195 to 1200 of the Song dynasty. Cambodia won all Champa and took over its land. Because of this, the country changed its name to Zhenla, but during the Yuan dynasty, it went on being called Chenla. Zhenla may have been known through several other names such as Wantan, which contrasted as Montan, or according to Tasho Hoshino Bolu, Wantan being its capital. Following Hindu god King Deva Raja tradition, the king chose the Sanskrit name of patron deity or Ivata, followed by the suffix Vaman, meaning protected by, obeying the code of conduct Manusmriti, the laws of Manu for the Kshatriya warrior caste. Origins of Zhenla. told most of the Chinese recordings to Zhenla, including that Zhenla conquering Funan, derived from very quick sources, have been contested since the 1970s, as they are generally based on single remarks in the Chinese annals. The history of the Chinese Sui dynasty contains entries of a state called Zhenla, a vassal of the kingdom of Funan, which had sent an embassy to China in 616 or 617, yet under its ruler, Siddhartha Mahendravarman conquered Funan after Zhenla had gained independence. Like his predecessors, Funan, Zhenla occupied a strategic position where the maritime trade routes of the Indo-sphere and the East Asian cultural sphere converge, resulting in prolonged socio-economic and cultural influence and the adoption of the epigraphic system of the South Indian Pallava dynasty and Chalukya dynasty. The origins of Zhenla's aristocracy, whom author Michael Vicker recorded, though great chieftains are obscure. These were local principalities north and south of the Great Mountains, who left behind the oldest known stone epigraphs in the region, bearing genealogical records that suggest increasing political dominance. The first known princes are mentioned in some early inscriptions. The Sanskrit impression of one Kante, Stengtang province, names a ruler Viravaman, who has his name suggested. His father's name was Savabhama, had adopted the idea of divine kinship and deployed the concept of Hari-Mara, a Hindu god that embodied multiple conceptions of power. His successor continued this tradition, thus conveying the idea of the correlation between political and religious authority. The New Book of Tang asserts that shortly after year 7 and 706, the country was split into land Zhenla and quarter Zhenla. The name signify a northern and a southern half, which makes conveniently to be referred as Upper Northern and Lower Southern Zhenla. By the late 8th century, Quarter Zhenla had become dependent on the Thalassocratic Shailendra dynasty on Java and the Srivijaya city-state on Sumatra. The last of Quarter Zhenla's kings seemed to have been killed and the polity incorporated into the Javanese monarchy around the year 790. Land Zhenla maintained its entirety under Jayavarman II, who proclaimed to come empire in year 802. Originally one of the regional centers of Funan, with an unknown degree of sovereignty, Zhenla was strictly recognized by a foreign power as a separate political entity at the end of the 6th century. Bavavarman I is independent ruler. Considerable scholarly discord prevails regarding the exact geographic origin, the ascent, diameter and chronology of territorial expansion, and in particularly the religious and the political center of Zhenla and Guangdong or not is consisted of a unified people under a single leader. Late 20th century scholars began cautiously to move away from the established historiographical framework, which has been laid out mainly by George Codes, who relies on external sources, specifically the Chinese annals, for its reconstruction. microphysically suggests that ancient authors allocating the name Zhenla to numerous small principalities and point to them as one singular entity in order to classify a larger number of people under the same characteristics, omitting distinction between individual states. This approach explains why there was a noticeable increase in stone inscription during the 7th century. Multiple independent territories would produce their own recordings and written regulation, whereas in one polity, only a teeny elite would be allowed access to ships pass. Before historians had begun to analyze and use epigraphic sources in great numbers, all available evidence supported the idea that the center of the Zhenla principality must be located at Mount Pukao, Linga Bhavata, the mountain of the Linga in Jambasak province, Laos, once belonging to the Jamba civilization. The local Wat Postel mentioned the name of the king Devanika, Fan Zheng, king of kings, yet researchers do not relate the monarch to the Dongrai chieftains. Contrary to the academic conclusion, Cambodian legends held that the origin of the kings of Cambodia goes back to the union of the Hamic Kambu Svayambhuva, eponymic ancestor of the Kampuchas, with the celestial numera who was given to him by Siva. The king Sultavaman was born of this couple, who was followed by his son, King Sri Tavaman. This king gave his name to Sri Tabura, believed to be Wat at the end of the 6th century. Bhavavaman and Chitrasena brought a title Mahendravaman, attacked Funan together and subdued it around 627 to 649. The obvious fact that Funan and Zhenla are vacuum concepts that do not apply to a tribe, a nation, or people is endorsed with the Cambodian legends of origin. Folklore follows an unflinching narrative like that of a single ruler, such as King Devanika, the reconstructed Maharaja Hiracha, King of Kings of Mount Pukao, where the people that live in the region, along with the people who came with Devanika, become the forerunners of the prosperous